Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7's editor's note. And in today's edition, we're going to focus on a couple of issues related to the Middle East with direct impact to the state of Israel. But before we do, let's introduce our expert for today, Brigadier General in Reserve Yossi Kuperwaser, a good friend, mentor, and formerly he served as the Director General of the Israeli Ministry of Strategic Affairs, head of the IDF Intelligence Directorate's Research and Assessment Division, and currently the President of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, as well as other think tanks. Can we call the...
think tank and the company for the benefit of the public. Yes.
Right. In the methodology of intelligence and other aspects that General Kuperwaser is regarded as one, if not the top expert here in the country, able to dissect and analyze and challenge the system in many ways. In Hebrew, we say, Lo omrim shivcho bifnei adam. We do not say praises in front of a person, but nonetheless, we are truly blessed to have you with us for today.
Thank you.
General Kuperwaser, today marks a year since the fall of the Assad regime. On the 27th of November, the State of Israel, via American brokerage, reached a cessation of hostilities with the Iranian proxy Hezbollah. It was actually done with the Lebanese government and the Speaker of Parliament there, Nabi Berri, who is very close as the leader of the Amal faction, which is the other Shiite or dominant Shiite organization in Lebanon. Hezbollah has killed its offensive against the State of Israel after joining the war on October 8th, the year prior, and during the course of which Israel decapitated its capabilities, its leadership, its will to fight. It was in a state of not only disarray, but in a true stage of survival, which was quite amazing to see, not only here in Israel, but this was spoken about around the world. And in Syria, during the days that led up to the ceasefire, they were looking very anxiously to the moment in which that would take effect, because immediately thereafter, the Al-Qaeda affiliates, Muslim Brotherhood affiliates at that point, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, under the then Abu Muhammad al-Julani, who later became the president of Damascus rather than all of Syria, since it's not yet consolidated into one, has launched a blitz and taken over Damascus. And since then, after receiving much support from Turkish intelligence and British intelligence, Ukrainian drones were provided in order to also harm the infrastructure that the Russians had in Syria. And much was done in order to facilitate this reality. It was not just a push by those jihadists that brought about the success of bringing down the Assad regime, which was a brutal regime and supported by the Islamic Republic of Iran. But nonetheless, Israel looked at it and understood that we're dealing with a new reality, a new threat emerging, despite the optimism voiced in the West. Take us down that road.
Well, I think that if you look at, if you try to summarize the year of Shahar regime in Syria, it was a very positive year from his point of view. He managed to garner support from all walks of the international community. And everybody realizes that Shahar is there to stay, and everybody wants him to stay. And everybody wants to see stabilization of the situation in Syria. And he is considered to be the one who's going to provide this stability. And that's why the United States is going out of its way in order to support him, even though he was, and he still is, leader of a jihadist organization. Europe, of course, is more than happy to help. Not only do they want stability, but they also want to find a way to send back the Syrian refugees,
Remigration.
remigration. And the Russians need him because they want to stay in Syria, so they forget their commitment to Assad, and they still host Assad, and they are not going to maybe give him away, but back to the regime in Syria. But they are ready to cooperate with the Shah, and the Shah is ready to let them play a role in Syria as well. And even the Iranians, in my mind, are trying to find ways to build relationships with Shah. Definitely the Arabs, all Arabs are interested in building relationships with Shah, and he just has been the star of the Doha Forum, and everybody was waiting to listen to what he had to say. And of course, this is not at the expense of his special relationships with Turkey and Qatar. And he's playing his hand extremely well. Everybody supports him. And the reason why everybody supports him is, first of all, they want stability, and secondly, they understand that he is, in spite of being a jihadist, is ready to adopt the order of priorities that they want him to adopt, which means, first and foremost, rebuilding Syria, and then care about what jihadism means in this context. And for being able to behave this way vis-a-vis Shah, everybody looks at him with one eye closed. One eye open, one eye closed.
But on that, because one thing that always comes back to my mind, and that is 9/11. The Al-Qaeda attack on the Twin Towers in the United States, which, it was a devastating moment, not only for the families of those who were murdered on that very day, but for all Western civilization, not only for the United States. All Western civilization was hit and truly felt the pain on that day. And in the hearing of Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence in the United States, she stressed that, I don't understand how we can give Al-Qaeda the gift of Damascus. And that is the reality.
Do it even if you don't understand it. It's
No, but I agree. But you look at what is happening. There were people captured following the atrocities that were committed by the Damascus regime against the Druze. People from Turkmenistan and Tajikistan and even Russia in certain areas.
well,
And they were asked, what are you doing here? And they said, we came to join the Islamic State. And then they asked them, okay, when did you come to Syria? In May. Months after they took over. In other words, they view the Damascus regime as the foundation to the new Islamic State
of course,
in Syria.
those jihadists that were part of the Syrian opposition before the revolution in last November, December, are still the same jihadists. Nothing has changed from their point of view. They still speak about the same goals that Al-Qaeda has. And they still see the taking over of Damascus as a tool in order to promote the goals. And the Shah is not trying to convince them that the opposite is the truth. He's nice to the West because he needs the West. And he's nice to the jihadists because he needs them too. Otherwise, he's not going to be in power.
He's one of them.
And he's a very sophisticated
Right. He's
species.
a jihadist of another type.
Yes, the person is very sophisticated.
Right.
But he's considered by them to be their leader, and they definitely want him to succeed. And they know that for the time being, you have to be cautious. Look, this is something very deeply embedded in Muslim jurisprudence. That if you are in a weak place, you don't go with your head into the wall.
Right.
You wait, you build your capabilities, and when the time is ripe, then you take action. Now, it's not that the West doesn't know that. But the West believes that with stabilization and better life, the mission is going to change. I'm afraid it's not. It's not going to change. The question is how long they are going to wait. Prophet Muhammad waited for something like 2 years before after he concluded the Hudaybiyah Accords with his tribe Quraysh and promised not to enter Mecca for the next 10 years. And after 2 years, he entered Mecca.
Right.
So you can never tell. It depends when he's going to feel strong enough. I don't think he's changed any of his beliefs. He still believes that Islam should be the ruling religion all over the world and everybody should become Muslim, and that the use of force in order to do that is legitimate. I think he believes all of these elements that make him a good radical Muslim.
The president of Turkey believes the same thing, and he's been very vocal about it. He actually got into prison for reciting a poem that states that.
But then again, when he's the president of Turkey, he's not waging a war against his friends in NATO. So you never know how this is going to develop and how much time it's going to take before somebody is going to take action against the West. And the belief of the West, as was our belief, is that before October 7th, was that through economic support, through improving the living conditions of the population, you can buy more time. And it's true, you can buy more time, but you can't buy all the time in the world. You can buy just a new portion of time for the time being. That's not going to change the core of the problem.
And the irony of that is that you don't only buy time, you also facilitate the nearing of the time in which the clash is going to occur.
Yeah.
And October 7th was the atrocity, the day of atrocities that obviously is going to...
What is wonderful about it is that you never learn any lesson from any experience. Look, the United States was helping the jihadists in Afghanistan at the time without realizing that it is going to counter their interest in the way it did in 9/11. We are so determined to fool ourselves that it's very difficult to convince us that we are actually fooling ourselves.
Is it fooling ourselves, though? Because, when you look at the practitioners engaged in those issues, it seems like the ones who are willing to give him a chance are not necessarily aware, or not rather aware, but they're willing to turn a blind eye, and they say so openly.
Yeah.
If you take the American Special Envoy for Syria, Tom Barrack, he has said more than once, I don't know what their ulterior motives are. We're
Yeah, but he still behaves as if he knows.
He acts as if he knows, but he doesn't. And
he's ready to admit that he doesn't, but he's acting as if he does.
So where's that discrepancy coming from?
It's something deep embedded in our way of looking at the world, our world perception. We believe that by doing good things to others, we can buy their trust. And look, when Shahar visits the White House, everybody's impressed with the fact and puzzled by the fact that the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, is shaking hands with somebody who until recently was having a $10 million prize over his head. And
with the little fine print, if you look down into the fine print, that it actually explicitly states that he's responsible for the murder of hundreds of civilians.
Yes.
And you see that.
So
and you hear him also over the weekend in the Doha conference, and you listen to what he says when the MC, namely Christiana Amanpour from CNN, asks him, you were a terrorist, you were a member of Al-Qaeda and Islamic State and so on. And he comes back with an answer, I wasn't a terrorist. And the world is starting to realize it now. That's how he frames it, and this is the narrative that he's pushing right now. Al-Qaeda and Daesh are not
Of course,
terrorists.
from his point of view,
Who are the
they
states?
never were.
Who are the terrorists and who are the state actors that are regarded as terrorists? Israel, those responsible for Gaza, as he puts it, and the United States, the country that he needs. He's speaking about America being a terror state for its activities in Afghanistan and
Not
Iraq.
Al-Qaeda and ISIS, of course.
No. So, again, where's this discrepancy? Why don't the West, the leaders in the
Because
West...
he delivers. For the time being, he delivers. And as I was starting to say, when he was visiting the White House, everybody was puzzled by the fact that President Trump shook his hand and gave him such a wonderful welcome. But I was amazed of the other direction. How come that he, who really still believes in the same ideology that he adopted long ago and became such a famous person because of his commitment to this ideology, how come that he shakes the hands of the leader of the United States that stands against everything that he believes in? So it tells you.
And what's the answer?
The answer is that, according to his belief, there is a need now to show pragmatism, but it doesn't mean that he has become a moderate person. He's just pragmatic. And the moment he believes that the time is ripe, he's going to change color. And we have to keep that in mind. We should postpone as much as we can and maybe prevent him or give him so many goodies that he will never decide to change course. But there's no guarantee that we can do that. And we, from an Israeli point of view, we say to ourselves, okay, he's a jihadist, but for the time being, we can gain something out of his pragmatism.
Even though he's a jihadist on our border, and what we're seeing on the border regions is a jihadist fueling a buildup of forces of jihadists, people who were both affiliated to Al-Qaeda as well as the Islamic State. It makes me think about the tribes in Yemen, where they are both loyal to their own tribe as well as loyal to Al-Qaeda, because that is the expression of their loyalty to Islam, so to speak, and that's how they view it. So we see that this is happening here as well.
Same here.
And Israel is being proactive within the doctrine post-October 7th to try and mitigate immediate risks, medium and long time, also emerging risks,
Look, what is the alternative? The alternative is to take action in order to remove him from power. Nobody really considers this as a real option.
So there is no option, plan B?
I don't think there is a plan B of that sort. He's there. He's the most powerful player in the Syrian arena. He doesn't control all of Syria. He has many weaknesses, and he's not in control of the Kurdish area. He's not in control of all of the Alawite area. He's not in control of the Druze area. And even in the Sunni areas, he's not in control directly of everything. But nevertheless, he's the most powerful player, and he holds the legitimacy of Syria. When you speak of Syria, you speak of Shahar. If you want to conclude an agreement with Syria, you conclude it with Shahar. If you want to visit the person who is in charge of Syria, allegedly, you visit and meet Shahar. And this makes him the representative of Syria and the person who is speaking on behalf of Syria. And nobody's in the state of mind of let's find somebody better. And by the way, he's a very sophisticated person. Always knows how to place himself as some sort of middleman that can be trusted by everybody. And he's doing extremely well in this respect. And the fact is that everybody wants to be his friend. Mm. Look, by the way, just hours before he took power, the trend in the Arab world was to legitimize Assad after a very long period of time that he was delegitimized.
Except for Qatar.
But the rest of the Arab world was ready to legitimize Assad.
Yep.
And,
The Americans were considering a Caesar Act 2.0, so to speak, which sought to frustrate those efforts, particularly spearheaded at the time by the Saudis and the Emiratis. But within that context, we did see that the Qataris, who were fully engaged, of course, in grooming Ahmad al-Shah or Abu Muhammad al-Jalani at the time, were blocking those attempts for the same reasons that they claimed they were not engaged in, namely support of Al-Qaeda and Islamic State and doing all those type of things. And now you see the United States coming out and under President Donald Trump designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization as part of an EO, an executive order.
not exactly,
But only parts of.
Yeah, only part of.
And that does not include the Muslim Brotherhood in Syria. It doesn't include Qatar, and it doesn't include Turkey, where the Muslim Brotherhood is the most prosperous.
Yes, in fact, Shahar is not Muslim Brotherhood. He's,
He's a Salafist.
Yes, in radical Islam there's a continuum that starts with Muslim Brotherhood, and there are all kinds of Muslim Brothers, and there's what goes on beyond the Muslim Brotherhood, going all the way to ISIS and certain fractions of it. He's not a Muslim brother. He's more radical than a Muslim Brotherhood.
Right.
And the act now to start declaring parts of the Muslim Brotherhood as terror organization tells you that if you would have had to define Shahar, you would have said definitely that he's a member of a terror organization.
Right.
But the situation has changed. It's realism and wishful thinking and looking with a blind eye on this situation. Israel doesn't have the capability to change that, or it's not in Israel's interest to change it. So we have to find ways to accommodate ourselves to the new situation. And that's why we are trying to see the benefits of cooperating with Shahar, or how we can bring him to cooperate with us in a way that serves our interest. What we want is very simple. No radical Islamist deployment in the southern part of Syria. No activities of Hezbollah and Iran in Syria. Not using the Syrian territory as area that can be used for transferring weapons from Iran to Hezbollah. And limitations on the Turkish involvement, and clear commitment to the safety and security and well-being of the Druze and other minorities that we care about, first and foremost the Druze. These are the things we ask for. They can be achieved, and the Americans understand that it's in their interest to move things in this direction. And even Shahar is willing to reach some sort of security arrangements along these lines without committing to normalization, without committing to...
He doesn't want normalization. No, we see that point blank. Right?
Yeah, he doesn't want, he needs, but he doesn't want normalization with Israel. He's coming from too far away. He's not a pragmatist, a moderate pragmatist like the Saudis. They have to find a way to move forward, but are cautious in doing that. He doesn't need it, but the security arrangements in Israel are going to serve him to prove to the Americans, to the Westerners, and even to the Syrians, to the Russians, that he can be trusted, and that the credit they give him can be extended for some more years.
The people I speak with in Washington about this matter tell me point blank that they're cautiously hopeful with regard to Syria, but they're also quite realistic about the prospects of the Damascus regime succeeding in the long haul. He has created too many enemies in his vicinity, and any overture towards the West, to include his pledge to join Operation Inherent Resolve, which is the U.S. military's operation against Islamic State, received pushback from his own people. who said that that cannot be. Right. So we are going to see a very complex period of time moving ahead.
No, but he can support action against ISIS, for example.
Yes, but
These are his
so long
enemies.
as it fulfills the objectives of his own
Of course.
strategic interests.
Of course.
Religiously speaking, he got pushback even about that. So that's quite interesting to see. There is an issue there because it's siding with the Christians, so to speak, to fight the Muslims, and that is from a Islamic perspective in the radical levels that he's playing in.
He fought ISIS in the Idlib area, and he's not shy about fighting ISIS.
Together with the Turks.
Together with the
But
Turks.
the Turks are not part of Operation Inherent Resolve
Yeah, but
either.
he can do that together with the Americans. Of course, it's going to create some pushback from his jihadists, but he's ready to do that because what he needs now is credit from the Americans, credit from the West. That's the highest priority. And he can speak. You should listen always to what language he speaks,
Right.
to whom he speaks. When he speaks with the Westerners, he's very pro-West or very
It
pragmatic.
sells them what they want to hear.
Of course.
Well, we are at the end of our program today, so I will point out that I believe it's safe to say that Israel needs to keep a watchful eye to everything that is happening there. And
I just add one
Please
last
do.
thing is that those who are the main losers of that are the pragmatic and really moderate Syrians that live in
Absolutely.
Syria, including the minorities and including the vast part of the Sunni population who are also not jihadist, and they have to live under the jihadist rule.
as Tulsi Gabbard said, they are selling Syria to the jihadists, to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. This is a sad scene to see. And that is something that I think the region is going to pay for, and the world as well, because you're basically creating a terror state that is going to fester and create a lot of problems in the long run for all Western civilization. But this is all the time that we have for today. General Kuperwaser, thank you so very much for your time and
Thank you.
valuable insights. Thank you. So I'd like to thank also all of you at home as well. And we will see you during our next edition from here in Jerusalem. Shalom.